Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hello. Happy happy Thursday. Welcome from wherever you are joining today. My name is Susan and I'm joined by the amazing Dexibit founder, Angie Judge. Welcome, Angie.
Hi, everybody.
Today we are going to be talking all about beautiful dashboard design. So we'll be taking you through the steps on how to create a dashboard from scratch. But to begin with, I will take you through a quick introduction to Dexibit for anyone that may be new here. So if you're new to Dexibit, we do data analytics specifically for visitor attractions. This is for both cultural and commercial organizations. Our mission is to democratize data, and we do that by bringing together all sorts of data from around the visitor's experience in your venue's operations. So things like footfall, ticketing, CRM, point of sale, e-commerce, social web, weather, and so much more. So I will just share my screen now to show you what that looks like in the product. So this is Dexibit. It is software as a service. You can invite as many users as you'd like, and you can build dashboards, reports, insights, and forecasts, which you can then turn into scheduled email reports at a click of a button. And in Dexibit, we have a huge library of visualizations. To add one to your dashboard, you can simply search for the topic you're looking for and click Add to add it in. And this is an example dashboard, so you can see lots of different data coming together in these visualizations to get everything from very high-level data right down through to the very detailed data. So I'll hand it over to Angie now. And perhaps, Angie, you can start us off with going over what's the ideal dashboard size.
Thanks, Susan. And so I think an ideal dashboard size is around about something that somebody can view on a page, if you can get it down that far. There's different types of dashboards and different types of reports for different purposes. And if you were telling a really elaborate data story or doing lots of analysis, you might want something a bit bigger and that might go on for a few pages. But I think if you're just looking for a basic dashboard to give people some numbers just to start off with, I would start with something that's going to fit on a page. So that is usually something about like 6 visualizations, maybe 5 if you were to add in some text in place of one of those. That gives you an idea of what that looks like. I thought I would share my screen and I will take you through a couple of design tips because today we just want to talk all about what makes a good dashboard design and what you can do to sort of improve the readability of yours. So if you're making a dashboard for yourself, you don't really have to worry about too much. Make it look pretty if you like, but it's when we're making dashboards for other people, we have to worry about how much context they have coming into the dashboard, even if they've used the dashboard before. It takes most users a hot minute to just orient themselves when they come into a dashboard. And so we want to speed up that process as much as we can, because it's during that moment that somebody can feel overwhelmed or put off, and they can turn away from the data rather than sort of persevere and find the insight that they want. And so the sorts of things that we can do to ease the user into that experience are some design principles which make the dashboard look nice, clean, tidy, easy to come into, and very explainable. The big design principle that we're aiming for here is simple yet meaningful. So let's start off with the title here at the top. In Dexibit, you'll have lots of different dashboards. You can see I've got over 50 in my collection, plus ones that other people have shared with me. And so one of the things to think about is the naming conventions you use for your dashboards. I think it's a great idea if you are designing dashboards for other people, particularly if you've got a few of them to do for various teams, is to use a design framework, something like the jobs to be done principle. And so the title that you use to reflect your dashboard might actually be the name of the job. And by job, I don't mean a role, like somebody's job in the organization. I mean the task that it's supporting the function of. So that could be like a briefing for an executive leadership team. That's kind of a job to be done, is to brief the team on all of the sort of results from the last week or whatever the case might be. And you might also like to think about sort of the naming conventions of what other people might search for, because when they do have lots of dashboards, they might be searching for particular keywords. So making sure that those are in your title, particularly if you use acronyms, say, for example, I might say briefing for my executive leadership team in brackets ELT, in case one of my users is searching for an acronym. And you might also think about how they appear alphabetically. So sometimes we'll say sort of VS, like visitor services, this, VS, that, if we want to kind of group everything together for a particular team in a big team list. And you can see here at Dexibit, we're huge fans of emojis. We put them absolutely everywhere, but I really think that they might be casual and fun, but they really jazz up the visual appeal, and it just makes things look a bit friendlier, which can help with users coming into data, especially if they're new to it all. And you'll see as well here underneath the title is a subtitle space where we can add some more context. I like to use this to convey super important information, like, for example, the data in this dashboard is unaudited until month end. You know, like all of these things that are like the disclaimers that you want your users to know. Or I might include, say, a jumping off point or a next steps, like, for example, a link to something on my intranet site. If I was wanting to redirect staff who are maybe onboarding and looking at some new data as part of that onboarding process for them to continue their onboarding journey. So lots of different ways to use this here as well. And then we come into the dashboard itself. So I mentioned at the start that having 6 visualizations is good, and you can see why, because that sort of structure here, albeit I've cheated and made one of them extra big, so there's technically only 4 plus a text box, but you can see that this is kind of as much as one person can see on a screen. Now, this might be different if they're looking at it on a tablet or a really small laptop. I've got a nice big screen here, so I'm perhaps seeing a little bit more than a smaller device. But it gives us sort of what I can see at a glance and consume at a glance. And often with dashboards, that's what we're trying to do, is convey information very quickly to the users. We want them to kind of see everything on one page. And if you find your dashboards going on for like 40 visualizations, maybe it's a time to revisit it and decide whether it might need to be broken up into a few different ones. And another thing that I always like to do is I like to use a text box. So when you're looking at that library that Susan was showing you before, you can search for text box, and you'll see some text blocks that come up that you can just add into your dashboard to accomplish this. The cool thing about this is that you can actually format them like you do in a Word document, and do all sorts of things, and of course use emojis and things in these as well. So you can sort of use them to create some visual dimension in the text. And these are great ways to, again, add context. Us human beings love to read before we like to look at graphs, most of us. And so sort of just easing the user into looking at this information that you're presenting them and the story behind it can help give that narrative and that context that's then going to help them come into the data and then start to enjoy the visualizations. And so these are great. And one of my favorite tricks is actually to use a text box at the beginning of each row, and then only have 1 or 2 visualizations to follow, because it helps me with that data story of in each row of my dashboard, making a point and then illustrating it, and then making another point and then illustrating that, and then making another point and then illustrating that. And you take the user in each row step by step through the data story that you're telling them, and then have some other maybe summaries up the front and down the back. So it really helps if you're getting into some heavier analysis to sort of break up what can otherwise be, again, super overwhelming if it's just lots and lots of charts. So speaking of charts, this is our most popular visualization, which is used on a lot of people's dashboards. And the reason for that is that it's nice and simple. We can all read this visualization. It gives us some really actually useful analysis here, because it gives us a year-on-year growth rate. Mine is very unexciting here, it's flat. And it gives us a visual cue of, over the period of time, what the pattern looks like here. And it gives us some quick stats around totals and averages, and you can configure what these look like. So this is called a total summary visualization. You'll find them in your library on all the main metrics. You can also create them if you want to start from scratch. And this is the summary visualization here if you're making your own. And so these are great starters for a dashboard, because the first thing I want to know is, what's the main headline number? What's my key performance indicator? And I would encourage you to use the title here and use the back of the card description as well to add context and definition and things like recognition rules. If you want to explain the background of some of that KPI, maybe talk about your goals or your strategies that you've got set as an organization and how it ties back. You could also do that in that text box. So these summary volumetrics are a really, really great way to start a visualization. Don't be afraid to, because they're basic. I think sometimes less is more when it comes to communicating data, particularly out to a wide stakeholder group. There are lots of different chart types in Dexibit. So on the style tab, you can select between all of these different chart types. Don't be afraid, again, to use some simple ones here, like I've used a pie chart, which I know people have a lot of very mixed feelings about. Some people feel that they're too simple, but they are incredibly popular, again, with our wider stakeholder and user group, because of the fact that they are so simple and they convey some quite big, meaningful things quite quickly for others. If you are doing a dashboard that you're intending on taking to a report, so something that somebody might be receiving via a PDF or even a screenshot, so they might be maybe taking an image of the visualization and putting it into a slideshow, for example, or maybe they're scheduling their report and this is coming out to their inbox via a PDF. Do think about the fact that they don't have that same nice interactive capability that you will when you're working with data. So you can think about things like maybe putting on some captions or some data labels, so that when they're viewing that report, they can see some of that extra information. But just play with what's reasonable for the visualization to hold. There's only so much room on the page, so it is going to start favoring what it's going to choose to label if you've got lots and lots of data like I do here. So something to think about in terms of just maybe switching down to a lower granularity of data, like weekly if you're using a time series, or maybe here I might look at my top 10 things just so I can reliably label them all in one space. And another thing, again, which is quite useful when we are jamming in a lot of information, is to think about the size and shape of your visualization. At the bottom right-hand corner, you can drag your visualization and just drop. So click, hold, drag it, and it'll snap it into a grid so it still looks pretty. We don't want to jam everything up as much as it would help us get it all on one page. But this really helps us to achieve some visual balance and make some of those spaces bigger, particularly where we have a lot of information to convey. And another quick tip here, if you're looking to move things around, just again, click, hold, drag, and drop to move those objects around on your dashboard. But this is a great way to make things slightly larger. You can also sort of maximize it full width and minimize quickly if you want to do it that way as well. And I love on particularly on time series graphs like this to show some of that context in the graph as well. So here you can see I have my attrition rate, I think in this case, and you can see it hit 0 here on the 1st of December, which is fairly unusual for it. And I wanted to explain the reason for an attrition rate looking like that. It was because we were closed. So in my almanac here, I'm clicking on my edit visualization. I'm clicking on my almanac tab here. I've added my note. or I've referred to one that I've already got closed for renovations, and you can see that I've just turned that on so that it then shows on my visualization here. So you might have a few of them. You might have ones that are spanning a period of time, like a school term or a cherry blossom festival, for example. So having those show on your time series, again, just brings more of that context, more of that data story. These are things that, of course, the user can go in and access themselves, but they might not have the thought or the time to do that, or maybe they're using a PDF report, so they might need some of that spelled out for them. And then also coming back to sort of the sometimes less is more, keeping it simple message. Sometimes all you need is a table. To achieve this, just swivel around here like this. So click the ... button and go show table layout. And here I've got a nice table of my key facts here again. Sometimes this is all people really want. It's just some of that actual data when they're quickly ticking things off, and they don't need extra visual cues around patterns over time and things like that. And there's a lot of things that you can do with tables. You can also create custom table objects here for those who want something more advanced. So you can come in here and create a query in the Data Explorer and call it up in your dashboard visualization. Or you can use some heat maps and you can make them super big. This is a really great way to check for data integrity, which is to create a super large heat map. So I've just used the heat tables available in the library, and I've just expanded it out a lot. And here I'm looking at my days of the week. For every week of the year, I can see I've got no gaps in my data, so I can be confident that I've got that even, and that heat visualization is helping me to see where I might have any data integrity issues, where I might maybe have a day where I've got partial information or something like that. That can be hard to spot otherwise. So sometimes tables can be visual at the same time. They're not just always just basic facts. So those are some of my key tips for dashboard and visualization design. So that is like keeping everything fairly simple, fairly small, very visual, very explained, and using lots of difference and variety through that to explain your point in different ways. And I hope you have lots of fun designing your next dashboard.
Thank you so much, Angie. Thank you. Really useful tips and tricks for dashboard design. We do have a question here before we go, and that is there a limit to the number of dashboards that you can create in Dexibit?
And that's a good question, and absolutely no, there's not. You can put as many visualizations as you want on a dashboard, and you can have as many dashboards as you like. You can even schedule that report to go out as often as you want. So if you want it coming out every hour, you can. So you go ahead and create as many as you want to. And I think when it comes to dashboards, the more the merrier. And I also have a lot of dashboards of my own that I just use as a working space for me. So I'll quite often have like 10, 15, 20 different spaces that I'm looking at different data, and they're not dashboards with an end in mind. They're just sort of a working space in the moment. So different things for different purposes, but yeah, I would go forth and create them all.
Thank you everyone for joining today. We look forward to seeing you next month.
Thanks everyone.